Right, the debate will now commence. I invite the Prime Minister to start off the debate.
Good afternoon to the Honourable Chairperson, adjudicators, timekeepers, members of the opposition, and members of the floor. I'm Valerie, the first speaker of this House. We, the government team, define the topic as the payment of educators based on the action of performing a task of their students. In context, we are having this debate because there has been cases in school whereby the teachers do not do their job properly or even fail to attend classes, thus causing students to have less understanding of a particular subject that are supposed to be taught by the teachers themselves on that day. Our stand is this House will pay teachers based on the performance of their students. Teachers are the key to every student's success and failure. But there are a minority of students who fail to be successful. Why? Because it's either they were not taught properly or not taught at all, but by some irresponsible teachers. To make it a win-win situation, we should pay teachers based on the students' performance. If we do not do that, there will be too much of effort to put in by the teacher to aid the students. Research has found that most students' reason to fail a particular subject is because of the educator themselves. If we will not be doing the job, but they were paid, I personally agree. That is why I strongly agree on my House stance to pay teachers according to the performance of their students. Thank you.
Right. So I thank the Prime Minister. Now I invite the leader of opposition to present the opposition.
Good afternoon, my worthy opponents, honorable judges, and members of the floor. Today, I am here to convince you that we should not pay teachers based on the performance of their students for a magnitude of reasons. But firstly, you're probably wondering why. It's simple. Many students receive extra help from home tuitions, as well as extra help from their parents, which will make them get better grades. Is this really a reflection of how well the teacher has done, or how well the student is doing at working independently? Students often get extra help from tuition centers, which helps to increase their grade vastly. I know of teachers whose entire class has passed with flying colors because of the tuitions they go for and not because of the performance of the teachers. That specific teacher is not necessarily doing a great job, but it's the performance of the teachers that is making the students pass. Secondly, since students are very accepted,
The student can't afford tuition.
then they can often seek help from their parents or other people around them, or they could read on the topic or study independently.
I'm sorry, but you're not answering my question. I'm asking you why if the student can't afford tuition. If the student can't afford tuition, what makes you think the parents can afford tuition?
I'm not necessarily saying the parents can afford tuition. There's other methods of finding out information. We live in a modern-day society where information is at our tips. You can research, you can find it in books, for God's sake. It is so easy to find information today. Secondly, there are many students who fail just because they do not like the teachers. Is this really a fair way to judge the teacher's performance? The student could manipulate the results just so to get the teacher fired and to suffer. The student can have a sense of revenge against the teacher. And this could be for illegitimate reasons, like a small mishap happening in class. Secondly, I'm going to give you an analogy. There are two classes. One class has smart students, brilliant minds. Another class has not as smart students, more mediocre students. There are two teachers. One teacher will have to work harder to help the mediocre students become brilliant. Whilst the teacher which has the class of brilliant students already have the necessary things to have brilliant students. So is this really a measure of the performance? Is it really the teacher that we can measure the performance by? The teacher which has to deal with the mediocre class would have to work so much harder compared to the teacher with the brilliant class. And you're going to base teachers' payment based on how the students do in exams and their performance. I don't think this is fair. This is not a solid way of paying teachers. You need to remember that paying teacher is an income. They earn a living from what they do. And I would also like to address the government's point of putting, because it's saying that it's the teacher's fault if the students don't do well. This is not necessarily the case, as often the students can manipulate the results in order so the teacher doesn't get paid. This is why we should not pay teachers based on the performance of the students. It is a horrible way to do it, and it's completely subjective. I hope we can see eye to eye on this matter. Thank you.
Right, thank you. The opposition leader, Prime Minister here.
I'm Tilaksha, the second speaker of my government team. As a second speaker of my team, I would like to put a stand to my house whereby this house would only pay teachers based on the performance of their student. Well, all of you know that teachers are the roots of education. Without them, I don't think any of us would be here or educate. Most of the students fail to be successful because they were not taught properly or not taught at all by some irresponsible teachers. To make it a win-win situation where teachers do their job, we should pay teachers based on their students' performance. If we were to do that, the teachers would put more effort in what they are doing. Research has found that most students' reason to fail is to not understand a particular subject because the educator failed to do their job. Secondly, not only the teachers would work on the student, but they would also train the student indirectly to be disciplined, hardworking, and to be a better person in life. This method might not be fair, but it affects in many good decline. I personally think it's not fair that teachers should not be paid by. That's all from me, thank you.
Good morning, adjudicators, my worthy opposition, and members of the floor. Firstly, I'd like to address the point that the opposition made. The opposition said that teachers are one of the root causes that students fail. However, I believe that students also need to take incentive and they need to study, which brings me on to my point. Bad work ethics. Everybody procrastinates. They may not say they do, but they do. Procrastination is bad, yes, and students do often procrastinate. When students don't study, the teachers get penalized just because the student gets a bad mark. To me, that seems very unfair. It's not the teacher's fault that the student isn't studying. Why should the teacher get penalized when the student isn't putting in any effort in their work? Secondly, paying teachers based on their students' performances are bad. What if the teacher is from a poorer family that can't even make ends meet? What if the teacher's class all fails, for example? Will the teacher not get paid anything, not even minimum wage, just because all their students fail? Now, firstly, that's illegal, and secondly, that's immoral. Accepted.
The stance of my house is this house would pay teachers based on the performance of their students, not this house would only pay teachers based on the performance of their students. Please understand that. Thank you.
Pardon me, can you please elaborate?
Sorry. What I meant was that this house, which is my team, would only pay teachers based on the performance of their students. And by that I mean this house will continue to pay the teachers, but they won't. That means they would still pay, but they would not pay them according to their performance of their students. That means they will still pay, but not based, not only based.
Oh, okay, I see, sorry. Well, still, you're giving a teacher a minimal amount of money just because you assume it's her fault that her students are failing. You don't assume that it's the student's fault, and that is a big leap. You can't just say that it's the teacher's fault that the student is failing. There's multiple factors to consider. Thirdly, if a teacher gets paid on the performance of her students, the teacher may set easier tests. If the teacher is more lenient with their test, then they get paid more as their students get higher marks. See? And then in the end, students tend to learn nothing because all the tests are so easy that they can just pass. And why should we pay the teacher on the performance of the students when the students aren't even learning anything in the first place? Thank you.
Thank you to the Honourable Chairperson, adjudicators, timekeeper, members of the opposition and members of the floor. I am the third speaker and I will be rebutting all the points from the opposition team. As the first speaker has said, students need extra help from parents or tuition to help them become smarter. But isn't that the purpose of a teacher? And if the teacher does their job well, therefore, why shouldn't we pay them? And as my first speaker said why should students go for tuition when teachers can teach them in school? Secondly, what if the student can't afford tuition? Do you think it's so easy to find tuition? As you said, there can be many ways to find information. Yes, I agree on that. But what if the student is lazy? And as your second speaker said just now, all students procrastinate. Yes, that is true. But are we to blame? This procrastination is programmed in all human beings, and this is what makes us human. If you have never procrastinated before in your entire life, declined. That means you're not actually living life to its fullest, which is true. Whoever does not procrastinate, you're lying to yourselves. Okay. And as you said, teachers may set easier tests. If the teachers are paid based according to the performance of their students, and as you said, that if they come from a poor family, wouldn't they want to have a higher wage? Am I wrong?
You are.
Accepted.
If they come to a poor family, it's likely that they're going to have to spend more time on household duties. And how are they going to put in the time and effort into teaching their students when they have to manage their own lives too?
Please sit down. Have you ever thought that the teachers could have children, or maybe their husband could help them out with the work? There's a possibility. A family does not revolve around one person alone. That's a lie. Okay? So, when the first speaker of the opposition team said that the students would purposely sabotage their marks so the teacher could get out of job, I don't think that is logic. I mean, you could get an A for this subject, so why would you want to get an F just because you don't like this teacher? It makes no complete sense. And did you know that tuition teachers are also considered teachers or educators in a different form? If you don't pay teachers in your school according to the performance of their students, you are paying your tuition teachers based on your performance. Therefore, it's the same. You are contradicting yourself if you're saying we would find tuition from outside. You are declined. Okay, accepted. I'm sorry.
Tuition, as the opposition has already mentioned, tuition is not the only way to get information. Also, parents can help students to help their grades. How is it that parents, it's not like tuition teachers are the only people who are getting paid.
But have you considered that if, let's say, the student comes from a very busy family whose parents are working every single time from dawn to dusk, you think they could help themselves? No, of course not. That's not possible. So therefore, I would like to strongly oppose and agree to my stand that this house would pay teachers based on the performance of their students. Thank you.
Right. And the second part of the debate, and by opposition.
Good afternoon, adjudicated, members of the floor, and my worthy opponents. Today, I am your third speaker, and I will be summarizing this debate as how it has taken off. Today, I would like to talk firstly about students may seek extra help from tuition centers. The opposition has mentioned that tuition teachers are actually teachers, and they can be also paid on the performance of their students. However, the opposition would like to say that it's not just the tuition teachers, there are books, and if the opposition mentioned that students may also be from poor families that are all like very busy. However, if the student is too busy, they'll be too busy to study. And even if the teacher is amazing and the student is so busy that they cannot study, how is it possible for them to get good grades if they cannot study in time for their exams or even their tests? That will bring down the performance of the students, and so the teachers will not be able to get paid as much as they should be. This is not acceptable. Accepted.
As your Deputy Prime Minister said just now, students procrastinate. So if they procrastinate, how do you expect them to actually go to the library and research the books?
If students procrastinate, that's a different thing. That's not the teacher's fault. Our topic today is about teachers are being paid because of the student's performance. However, it's the student's fault. People are staring at this as if it's the teacher's fault for all the education. Students, if they procrastinate, does not mean that it's because of the teacher. So back to my points, the teacher should, as the government has mentioned, the teachers would not only be paid based on the students' performances. And yes, they will not be, but then does that mean that the teacher will be paid the amount that they should be paid because of one student who brings down the average for that class? That is not acceptable, as the teachers deserve to be paid as like the rest of the class may have performed. So this is not the best way to pay teachers, and more effort for, like, if the student puts if the teachers, if they have a class that has a low average, and for you to say, for the government to say that the teachers will put more effort into getting their students to a higher grade, who's to say that the teacher will not just bring down the test? They won't be more lenient in their markings. That will bring the class to a higher grade and a higher average. That will increase the teacher's pay. That will make the teacher, even a bad teacher, look good. And it's not like anyone else is checking the tests that the teachers are marking, because there's a trust put in the teachers from the school board that they will mark correctly. And of course, the teachers may mark correctly, but they'll be very lenient. This will make students think that they're okay with their level. It won't push students to their limits that they can go. Teachers are supposed to be push students to the limits that they can reach. And so when teachers give these sort of tests, how will the students reach their full potential? Point accepted.
Okay, you said the teachers could set easier papers. How about government exams such as PT3, SPM, and IGCSE?
However, PTM, IGCSE, and all those other exams, it doesn't mean that the teachers won't be very lenient in their marking. It doesn't affect how the teacher is going to mark. That only describes the questions that will be given. And so who's to say, and that also reaches the point of tuition or help from other students in the class. It doesn't matter if that happens, because if the student could just do well in the IGCSEs because they had help. It's not because of the teacher. Thank you.
Right. To end the opposition speech, I will invite the opposition to lie.
The debate started with the government defining the motion, and the government saying that teachers should be paid on the performance of their students. And then it was the first speaker of the opposition which said that teachers should not be paid on the performance of their student for various reasons, such as the fact that they need extra help from tuition sometimes, and they do not like teachers. Then the government POI'd by asking how they're going to get the extra help if some families are from poor incomes, to which the opposition said that there are various ways to learn. There's not only tuition, but there's also, they can also request from their parents, and there are different ways to learn stuff. Then the opposition then said that that less intelligent students would mean that teachers would get paid less, and that smarter students in teachers' classes would mean that teachers would get paid more. And the government then said that teachers were the root cause of students failing, to which the opposition said that teachers are only as good as their students, as students are one of the main reasons that students also fail. And that's why the opposition thinks that the teachers should not be paid on the performance of their students. Thank you.
Right. So, let me debate. I invite you to take this part.
The government side totally agrees that teachers should be paid based on the performance of their student. Like the government team, there might be multiple factors for a student performance to lag. Not only the teacher's fault, but isn't the main factor of a student's performance to lag is the teacher's fault? If the teachers were be paid based on the student's performance, more effort would put in by the teacher. This is why our team should win.
Right, so that's the end of the
I have no idea how to do this. I have like no idea what
The
it's
screen is black, like
Yeah. The camera's on. The screen's on.
how do you turn on the Mac?
you guys
Do you know how to use the Mac?
No.
Check the
this is not small sheet, that's the outside.
Are you somehow a New Zealander or Australian?
No. I'm a mixed person.
Good job.